Hey, you're watching Half Asian Tarot Queen. I'm Elisa. Thanks for checking out the channel. I've been kind of slacking on readings lately, but I got a new deck, which I'm really excited about because I've kind of wanted this deck forever. It's the Animal Spirit Guidebook. I mean, that's the guidebook, but the deck is the Animal Spirit Sparkle. So I'm going to start with a couple cards from this deck. So we got Hawk and Swan. So this is really auspicious. I mean, it definitely speaks to this big turning point, which for sure is lining up with the other cards that I pulled from the other decks. But this is a sign that like fate is calling, and that there's a message from the divine that's like coming to you. The hawk kind of has like this, it's like a very precise, like they can see very precise, like fine details, but also has this bird's eye view. So it's like this combination of like very fine detailed perspective with a big picture perspective at the same time. So like some really deep insight might come to you, and a big change in perspective, but very insightful. So that's kind of coming. And then we also have the swan. So it's interesting how these go together, because the swan, I mean, this speaks of like creativity and having this sort of like it's almost like this blessing that's about to unfold or blossom, or like you know, being this channel for the divine. And this is like this blossoming of some creative gift that's coming online. So this is really interesting, because this is like the whole reading is speaking to this big change and this big shift. And you know, it looks like being sparked by some sort of like creative inspiration. So interesting. I'm going to Radiant Wise Spirit to pick a few, and then I've already pre-picked a couple from Mystical Shaman and from the Urban Tarot. It's really interesting. I've been super hooked on I just recently discovered there's a channel on YouTube for Antonio Vilvoldo, I think that's how you say his last name, but he's one of the authors of the Mystical Shaman, which if you watch my channel at all, you would know that that's like my favorite deck, and I'm kind of obsessed with it. And so he's the shaman, that's the author, and so I've been watching his channel, and it's really interesting because he gives a lot of insights about the cards in the deck, but also just the shaman's perspective. That's sort of the foundation for the deck, and I'm like really hooked on it. So I might put a link to his channel here, because I am really hooked on it. Oh my gosh, the cards that are coming out, this is really wild. This has happened before, where it's like all blue skies. Oh my gosh. But every single card that's come out is like blue skies. So I think there is a reading, so I'll show you. It's blue skies. It's also a lot of wands, a lot of fire energy that's coming, but for sure like blue skies. And then at the bottom of the deck, we have the Six of Pentacles. So this is a card of giving and receiving and things coming into balance. So maybe if something's been out of whack, I mean, it looks like there's this blessing that's coming for someone, and things are gonna come into balance. But we also have all this blue sky. So it's just like there is a reading called Blue Skies on the Horizon, which I'm gonna link here, because it's wild. But it starts with the Ace of Swords, so this is a card of truth being revealed. And we have the King of Cups. So this is a card of emotional balance and mastery. And then we have a card, the Eight of Wands, like a message coming in or things changing really fast, which is kind of the same message as a similar message with the Hawk. And then we have the Six of Wands, which is a card of victory and a card of like overcoming. You know, it's like someone's like gone off and like fought all these battles, and like they come home to this ticker tape parade and they're being like celebrated, you know. Which is interesting because the message comes right under the Hawk, and then the celebration comes right under this person who's given this like divine creative blessing. And then the last card we have is the Seven of Wands. So it's like there's all this stuff coming in. There's this truth, there's this emotional mastery, and there's just like almost like this elevation for someone, but they're having to stand their ground and defend themselves, you know, through all of this. So it's like there might be, what I'm getting is like there might be some jealousy to whoever, you know, this is happening for. You know, it's just like, I was just watching this documentary on the Netflix, and it was about Studio 54. And it was talking about when they first took off, and it just like blew up, and you know, they really changed the game, and they did so well, and they like attracted so much attention to themselves that they kind of like made themselves a target, you know. And that was kind of the beginning of the end, because that's sort of like, you know, like whenever people like are a great success, like you're gonna attract jealousy and like envy, and so, you know, there's a little bit of kind of having to up your game, you know. It's like not everyone's going to be happy necessarily, and like you might have to start to play the game at a different level, you know, because it's just like, you know, when you're like a poor artist, like everyone is your friend, you know, because like you're all kind of in it together, you know, like. But then when you kind of like rise, then it's a different game, you know, because then it's just like, I think that's kind of like the warning that's coming with this card. So, okay, so I'm going to move on to Urban Tarot to get a different perspective. So at the bottom, so that's this deck, using New York City as a muse, we have the Queen of Swords, the painter. So the Queen of Swords is typically someone who's like kind of been through the ringer. They've been through a lot of tough stuff, and so they don't necessarily have a lot of like patience for nonsense and like stuff that's like not in alignment with what they're trying to achieve or who they want to be. Like they've already kind of figured all that out, so they're just going to cut through all the BS, and they have strong boundaries, and they're pretty no nonsense, you know. But in this deck, it's the painter, so like it's like she is the visionary of her life. Like she's like creating it, you know, from scratch. So I mean, you can see, like, she has, like, a really focused vision, and she's creating it, you know. So that's at the bottom of the deck. And when I pulled her up to show this card, there's Two of Pentacles, which is a card of change. So, like, something, you know, there's some, like, creative vision that's coming. It's interesting that these cards kind of match to someone who's kind of been through some really tough battles and is going to have to draw boundaries and like maybe stand her ground. But then we have the Eight of Pentacles, prudence. We have the Seven of Swords, futility. We have the Two of Wands, dominion. We have the Devil. And we have art, which is a card of temperance. So this is really interesting because, you know, we have someone who's like really hard at work here, making a dedicated effort at something, but then that's followed by this like totally futile situation. And this is a theme that's come up lately in the last couple months a bunch. I'll try to find a reading where this has come up, but I mean, the foundation, this is the Seven of Swords, so it's a card of deception, and it's like somebody not being honest with themselves or the people around them about who they are or what they want. And so it's like basically a lie. And so, you know, when a situation is founded on a lie, inevitably it's going to be like a futile situation, because you can't really manifest and co-create with the universe or with God if you're lying, you know. I mean, it's just eventually going to hit like a brick wall, because that's just how things work, you know. So like this is here, you know. There's someone making a dedicated effort, but then we also have this futile situation. And then we have Dominion, which, you know, this is kind of like a turning point in the traditional deck, but here I take it as like, you know, like it's kind of like a situation of like oppression, you know, and that's followed by the Devil, which is like a toxic situation. So it's like we have this futile, oppressive, toxic situation here, and we have someone who's like hard at work, you know, but then we have art, or this is a card of Temperance in the traditional deck. So this is almost like this is coming into balance, like whatever this situation is, it's like coming into balance. So this, and it's interesting that it fell right under this card, which is another card of coming into balance. And it's a card of, and it fell on top of this card too, of standing your ground. So that's really interesting, you know. It's just like this Queen of Swords is maybe going to have to draw boundaries around whatever this futile situation is, but in doing that, things are going to come into balance, you know. But she might have to like stand her ground about it, but she will ultimately be victorious, you know, in speaking the truth and like bringing all of this to light. So then when I go to Mystical Shaman, at the bottom of the deck we have the Wind, which this is a card of change, you know, things are changing. And it's a card of having the courage to face the change, because it's like whenever there's a change in the external world, it starts internally, you know, there's a change within. And you have to kind of like have the courage to face yourself, and, you know, maybe whatever aspect of your perception of how things are needs to change. And you have to like do that work and have that awareness in order to bring the change forward, you know, which flows right into the Sweat Lodge, which is a card of like, you know, when you go to the Sweat Lodge, you're like sweating out like toxicity and like maybe perceptions that aren't in alignment with the truth. And it's like this healing process, but it's painful because you're having to like sort of detox. It's funny that like I'm like getting yelled at with this card, but it's like, you know, shedding something that's not serving you, you know. And there might be some work associated with that, and you might have to speak some truth, you know. But then that flows really nicely into the Time Master. So the Time Master is a card, and it talks about time not being linear, and just sort of like there might be like cycles that happen in your life, you know, where it's just like you might kind of like repeat like a certain pattern until you learn the lesson like internally that you need to learn in order to shift from that consciousness into the next stage of your life, you know. And then all of a sudden it's like you're shedding the skin, you know, the snake skin, and then you kind of like ascend into this next aspect of your life. But you have to, the thing about the Time Master is like there might be this recurring pattern, and there might be different people or different situations, but they're kind of the same situation. And the Time Master is all about sort of like being in command, you know, this emotional mastery. You know, like you're not deceiving yourself anymore about what this might be, you know, like it comes into your awareness, and then it leads to a huge shift, which the next card is Thunder. So this is a card of like a huge wake-up call, you know. And so it's just like there's this quick change, you know, which is also like this huge shift in perspective that's going to happen to like break you out of whatever this oppression is, you know. And then that goes into like the giveaway. So like I think this is a really important card about perspective. Like when these shakeups happen, they can be really unsettling, and you know, like a lot of toxicity and like negativity can get released, you know, because we're like purging all of this like negative stuff, and so that can be really unpleasant, you know, like there's this devil card, you know. And so I think there's a temptation when you're going through a shift like this, and especially if someone's like really coming at you with like a bunch of negativity, there's a temptation to sort of like fight fire with fire. But like I think the message with this card is really, if someone's coming at you with a bunch of negativity, how you respond is where your power is. So it's like if they're being really negative to you and you respond negatively back, then they've kind of basically taken your power, because it's just, I think I have an eyelash in my eye, sorry about this, but it's like what you put out into the world is what you're going to get back. So if someone comes to you with something negative and you respond negatively, then you're putting out negative karma for yourself, you know, and they've put out negative karma for themselves too. But the trick is that you want to be in command of your emotions, you know. So it's just like if somebody comes at you with a bunch of negative stuff, you know, obviously it's super tempting to be like, oh, well, I'm gonna, you know, but don't, like, let it go, you know. You gotta purge that and let it go, because you want to be very intentional about putting out into the world what you want to get back, because that's what you're manifesting for yourself, you know. So it's like you don't want to be sucked into their negative pattern, you know. You want to manifest, you want to be in a command of your emotions so that you can manifest this victorious outcome for yourself, you know. So like that's like a very important point, you know. I mean, like you're the one with the blessing here, so don't let it get hijacked by someone else who like might have like these toxic ideas or might be jealous, you know, of what you have to offer, you know, because that's like, that can like really derail something that's really beautiful and positive, like at the last minute, you know. And you don't want that to happen after you've like done all this work, you know. So be mindful of that, because if you can be in command of your emotions through this tumultuous moment, the Jaguar. So, you know, the Jaguar is like at the top of the food chain in the Amazon. But the thing about the Jaguar is the Jaguar has done all this shadow work where they've purged all this negativity, and they've done that work and brought that into their awareness, so that they've ascended from this pattern and they've become the master of their emotions. And that's why the Jaguar is at the top of the food chain, you know. The Jaguar like deserves it. Like it's not like this was just like an inherited thing. Like the Jaguar earns the right to be at the top of the food chain. So this is like, you know, it's like the rise of someone who really deserves to be empowered, you know, which is a really beautiful story, actually. Okay, I'm going to the Oracle of 7 Energies to pick a final card to end this reading, which is actually a really positive reading. Oh my gosh, this one has been coming out a lot. It's a tall tale, and it's all about like a lie being exposed, which, you know, is what we were talking about in the beginning, like purging this toxic situation. Okay, I'm gonna read it to you. Okay, this was the message. Denial, concealing the truth so you can manipulate and control a situation. Fear-based communication, creating a narrative to hide behind, not allowing the fear of what others think will think to influence your words. Learning to communicate from a place of authenticity. You or someone else is telling a tall tale right now. You always know if a falsehood is spoken because it doesn't feel grounded. When you lie, you get high on an illusory sense of power that is doomed to fail at some point. You feel driven by the fear of exposure, but something makes you stick to your story even though you know it has no substance. Whatever lie we are caught up in isn't as important as the motive for it. Why does anyone lie? Perhaps we don't believe the truth is good enough, or we want to keep doing what we know we shouldn't be doing. Then there is a lie put forth while in denial, such as hiding an active addiction. In this scenario, we may believe our own lies. The tall tale, the white lie, the stretching of the truth, and the blatant fabrication are all about control. The desire for it, the lack of it, the need to maintain it so we can manipulate the outer world and hide our inner one. Today, ask for the truth. Be willing to pay the price and be okay with the vulnerability your lie is exposing in yourself and others. Transparency is required to get to where you need to go to be truly empowered, to reveal the strength of what is true and authentic. Any other path leads to a dead end. Remember this saying, the truth will set you free, so get ready to fly unfettered. Wow. The truth is going to set someone free and bring this blessing into being. So, looks like a big turning point, and it looks pretty positive, unless you're the one who maybe is telling the tall tale, then it might not be that positive. But we'll check back.